Hey, welcome to the Omaha Magazine podcast. It's about all of us, where we highlight Omaha business and community leaders, arts and culture, and where to dine and play. I'm Gil Cohen, Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Omaha Magazine. There's a growing opportunity in Nebraska. In this episode, Casey Belitz, the Director of Nebraska's Department of Economic Development, joins us to share the state's vision on attracting new business and his role in accomplishing that vision. Casey, thank you so much for agreeing to participate in the Omaha Magazine podcast this morning.
You bet.
Or this afternoon, depending on when people are watching.
That's right.
As we mentioned in the introduction, Casey is the Director of the Economic Development Office for the state of Nebraska. And I thought it would be kind of interesting for those of you who have been tuning into the podcast since we've started. A lot of it's been local, Omaha representatives, but I thought it would be kind of interesting to have somebody from the state talk about what's going on in Nebraska in terms of economic development, how it affects Omaha, what you guys are doing. And so maybe you could just start out and kind of give us a little outline of what your role is as the Economic Development Director for the state.
Well, sure, and thanks for the opportunity, Gil. Appreciate that. It's an interesting question, of course, as with any role of CEO or president or whatever. You know, what is that job? It depends on the day and what needs to be done. But certainly, I think a significant part of my role is working with the governor to execute the vision that he has for economic development in the state. And then just being a servant to the team and making sure that the DED team can get done the work that they need to get done every day, because there is certainly a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I think too, right now, this moment in history is really an interesting one from economic development perspective. So I think part of my job also is just helping translate that or work through that, because really the practice has become fundamentally different in the last few years, and so hopefully I can help us navigate some of that as well.
Is there a job? Did we show up on day one? Here's a job description, like I went through in all my training, or is it you kind of?
There was not. No.
Okay. Yeah, that
would have been handy if there was.
Yeah. Kind of give you. So you have to form your own direction along with the governor and say, okay, what are our needs? What are we looking for? Where are our shortfalls? What do we have strengths in? And kind of form a program from there?
Well, I think there's two pretty distinct aspects. Number one is just I guess to make it simple, split it in internal and external.
Okay.
Internally, the agency has been through a tremendous transition in the last 3-4 years. Really starting with the disaster in 2019 with the floods, and that brought some additional work. But then obviously COVID in 2020, and since then our agency was maybe a $70 million agency in 2019, and this year we're just right at $1 billion.
Wow.
So you think about the scope of change that has created for this team. So the governor was clear that a significant part of my role was going to be internal, just making sure we have the processes and the people and all those things working. Because obviously none of the external stuff matters if you don't have the team working at a high level. And so there's all of that, and I really do think that's a significant part of what I need to do is provide them the resources, be an advocate for them, et cetera. So there's that. And then externally, then we talk about what is the vision for the state's work in economic development. How do we fit that with our unique assets, all those things that you talked about. Yeah. But those two are distinct and both, I think, pretty important at this moment in history.
So let's back up just a little bit. You're from Columbus, Nebraska. You were, if I understand correctly, you're president of the Columbus Chamber for a while. So obviously you have you have great experience. I mean, the governor wouldn't have appointed you to this position if you didn't have experience in building business or helping businesses grow. Are there specific, just for an example, of I might be listening to CNBC every once in a while, Squawk Box or something, and you hear come to Indiana. Indiana is up. And as far as I know, they're the only state that's kind of doing that now. But is that something that Nebraska can do, or
in terms of business or people or both? Or
yeah, I guess both, because as we talked earlier before we started recording, is it's kind of the cart before the horse. We need more employees here, but we have to have high-paying jobs or good-paying jobs to attract people to move from other states to Nebraska. And how do you balance all that out?
Right. Well, to answer the first question, every state does that somewhere. All of us in economic development in every state are out selling. Yeah. So we all promote the opportunities in our state. And yes, today it really is about both attracting jobs and attracting people, and somehow trying to marry those up. Nebraska's had among the lowest unemployment rates for years now. Hadn't really shifted much, even during a recession, during a pandemic, or whatever. It still hasn't really shifted very much. And so we clearly have a unique set of both opportunities and challenges that we need to address in economic development, because it's about people, which means far more complex. People are complex compared to attracting jobs.
Right.
And so we've gotten, as a result of that, we've gotten into things that 10 or 20 years ago would never have been contemplated by an economic development institution, whether locally or at the state level, like housing, like childcare, like community amenities, all these things that are necessary to attract a family who's going to come and fill a job or two jobs or whatever, as opposed to attracting a business is relatively more simple. Need land, need a building, need the power, whatever it might be.
Tax incentives.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really a much simpler equation.
Yeah.
And so today we're having to tackle both of those and again try to marry them up so that you kind of grow them together as you're going along.
Yeah. And obviously the state's unique because of the geographics of the state. Obviously we have Omaha and Lincoln and maybe a little bit farther west that are residential, highly populated, and then you have the rest of the state out to the Sandhills where
not as much
going on out there. And so how do you attract a business to Western Nebraska? Is it land? Is it
well, I think of course the answer to that varies widely depending on the business.
The type of business,
and I do think I think it's clear actually that a lot of the opportunities going forward today are by their nature going to be in those more rural places. One of our really unique assets is the fact that as the world shifts to a more green economy, a more sustainable approach, that is creating a fundamental shift in products that today are made out of petrochemicals are going to be made out of plant-based materials. Well,
here we are.
That's us.
The corn state, right? Yeah.
And so, a lot of the conversations that we're having with prospects are in that space. Companies that are looking to do something with the feedstocks that we provide, and we uniquely provide in terms of low carbon scores and those things that are really mattering. And so, by its nature, again, those things are going to happen in rural Nebraska, not in Omaha, right?
Yeah.
You don't have an ethanol plant at 72nd Dodge.
No.
And so
they have to put something there eventually.
Well, that's true. Maybe there will be. We don't know. But anyway,
I get it.
So you got to fit the right opportunity with the right place. And Nebraska is blessed with all of those options across our geography. And I think it's absolutely fair to say there's more places in rural Nebraska that are growing, that are really seeing a resurgence or a renaissance probably than at any time in the last 100 years.
Well, and just I don't know if we shared this the first time we met, but Columbus has a huge Becton Dickinson facility. That's actually the college I went to, Fairleigh Dickinson University. Yeah. And I was walking with my girlfriend one day. We were at lunch in downtown. What's the burger place down there?
Glures?
Glures, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, let's just take a little walk. And we're walking through the city park there. And sure enough, there's a picture of Henry Becton and Fairleigh Dickinson. And I had to send notes to all my buddies back on the East Coast. You're not going to believe this. Our alma maters are honored in this park. But there had to have been a reason why they moved to Columbus, or they opened a facility so many years ago. What drew Becton Dickinson in particular to Columbus?
So BD was the first external recruitment success for Columbus. In the 1930s, a group of, I would describe them as visionaries, decided that agriculture was certainly always going to be the base, but we would be well served with a diverse economy. At the same time, public power was just beginning. It was born in Columbus.
Okay.
And
is that MPPD then?
Well, not then, but it became that. But Lou Public Power, Cornhusker Public Power, and NPPD are all headquartered in Columbus. And that was the first. And so they just decided that industrial development was going to be the strategy to diversify the economy. And so we're very aggressive about just being ready to answer the call. And so BD was one that came looking for a spot somewhere in the Midwest. They were in New Jersey and needed a spot out here, and Columbus responded aggressively.
Interesting.
And so from that, there's been an interesting mixture of those external recruitments with homegrown companies like Baylor Manufacturing is probably it is the largest today, but Dale Electronics was born there, now became Vishay Dale, et cetera. So most industrialized city per capita in this region of the Federal Reserve, about 6,000 manufacturing jobs in Columbus.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And are there opportunities to grow more of that type of industry throughout the state, or is it kind of?
No question. Yeah, you've certainly seen a renaissance in manufacturing across the country. A lot of reshoring has happened for national security reasons, for other reasons. Nebraska last year had more people working in manufacturing than at any time in the last 2 decades plus. Wow. So manufacturing is doing well, but if we had the people, it would be at a completely different level. I talk to companies all the time, including yesterday, that have said literally they would be twice as big if they had the people, because they've had to turn down business that they just can't do.
Yeah, they just don't have enough staff.
Those are that opportunity cost. I think whether you're at the chamber or now in this role, it's the opportunity cost that really hurts. That just hurts your heart when you lose those opportunities. That's even worse than not having it in the first place.
Yeah, you feel bad it's not even just that. I mean, as people know, going out, restaurants are short-staffed, and retail locations are short-staffed, and hotels are short-staffed, and
all of which is lost opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
You only have generally one time to make a first good impression, and somebody's coming in Omaha and they don't. The restaurant doesn't have enough staff to take care of them. Are they going to come back again as a guest or whatever? So it's a struggle.
Yeah.
So, but Forbes, and I had this conversation with the mayor last week, and then with Heath. Forbes named Omaha in particular as a city to live in.
Yep.
Which obviously means they have to come to Nebraska to get to Omaha.
That's right.
So where are these people? You would think they're, clamoring to get over the Missouri Bridge or the Mormon Bridge, or, coming up through 75. What does this? People who live here know what the state has. We know what we have to offer. Is there something that is holding people back from coming here, or is it just a nationwide similar situation with unemployment Is there something that's keeping people from moving here, you think?
I think it's absolutely a multifaceted answer. So I'll just hit a few highlights. Maybe we can dig in further if something's interesting. Certainly the first step is simply awareness. People have to know that these opportunities exist in Nebraska.
Right.
If I'm in South Carolina, there's no reason I would know that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right.
So awareness is probably the first step. So to that end, the governor has challenged us, given us the opportunity to take that on, He put in his budget, the unicameral approved $5 million for a recruiting and marketing campaign to move people to Nebraska. He certainly does not look at that as a one-time investment. We would all, I think, understand that you're going to have to make those investments over time to really move the needle. So our new fiscal year started July 1, so we're a couple of weeks into actually having the resource. So we're deep into the planning of how we're going to execute on that. We can talk more about that if you'd like. So the awareness is certainly a piece of it.
Right.
Housing is a piece of it. They got to have somewhere to live.
Affordable housing too, and that's getting crazy now with home prices, even starter home prices,
insurance, taxes, all those things. So housing, got to have, no one's going to move here without somewhere to live. That's pretty self-evident. So we got to do something about that. Obviously, property taxes is a high priority for the governor, and it has impacted the affordability of housing. There's no question about that. It impacts lots of other things as well, so we got to do something about that. I applaud him for making the effort on that. And then it's just the fit. You have to have the right job for the right person at the right time, in the right place. We got to fit all of that. Got to fit all of that together. And so, no free market economy is without friction. So if we could perfectly match up all those things, well, then we would move more people to Nebraska. We would. But that's the job. That's the challenge, matching all those things up so that we move people here. There's no question that we have. I mean, we have the data to show that we have a more receptive audience today to the idea of living in Nebraska or living somewhere like Nebraska than at any time in generations. So we do have an opportunity to move the needle in ways that we have not. But we're going to have to do the work. We're going to have to do some work to build the awareness, to tell the story, and as you alluded to earlier, then to match up the great job with the right person and make it all fit.
One of the you brought up the marketing side of it. How do you market a state as big as Nebraska with so many diverse opportunities here, whether they want to go in agriculture, manufacturing, or any of the, what do we have left? 4 Fortune 500 companies left. How do you send? You have to be strategic in where you're putting that message out.
Exactly right. That's those are all assets that we have to talk about. And so, you don't sell the same way a job at Mutual of Omaha as you're going to sell the opportunity to work at Black Shirt Feeders in Southwest Nebraska. You don't sell them in the same place to the same person. We have to be strategic and targeted in that effort if we're going to be successful. But we have tools today to do that literally have not existed before. We can target not just marketing, and I want to be clear about that. This effort will not just be marketing. We know just buying TV ads in Chicago isn't going to get us where we need to get.
We mentioned that about
So
CNBC.
It's marketing and recruiting, but both of those are going to have to be targeted to maximize the resource that we've been given.
And one of the other thing, which we hadn't talked about, which I think probably affects this too, is we're losing people. The brain, what they call the brain drain, right? We get kids that are graduating from Lincoln and from UNO and Creighton, and they're leaving the state. And so that affects the opportunity to create jobs here too if they're leaving. I had lived in North Carolina back in the 80s, and that's when Governor Hunt developed the research triangle. And they were going through the similar situation. Kids were leaving North Carolina, NC State, and Duke, and needed to have something. Is that something? Is that a vision or something viable that we can do in Nebraska to keep these graduates here so they're not leaving?
Right. Yeah, a couple comments on that. I mean, obviously, yes, it is something that needs to be addressed. The governor and the university work together to create these scholarship opportunities, which are definitely making a difference. And then also at the back end of that experience, as they near graduation and then graduate from college, we have to make sure they understand the opportunities they have in Nebraska for sure. At the same time, just to kind of level set, obviously every state has some percentage of graduates that leave and go somewhere else, and that's okay.
Depending on what the jobs are, what their career takes them.
I think there's some danger in a narrative that says to a 22-year-old, "Oh, don't you dare leave." That's not a good message. It sounds to me like we're saying, "Oh, we don't want you to leave because you'll find out there's something better." Well, I don't believe that. I think
even
this
if they
is
do,
better.
they still come back too.
That's right.
Eventually, they do.
I think our message should be, you know what? Yeah, if you want to go have some experience, great, but bring that experience home.
Back. Yeah.
Because we believe Nebraska is the best place for you to end up. There is no better place in this country to raise a family than Nebraska. No way. So I want our message to be, yeah, we'd love to have you here now.
Right.
But if you want to go, you've got a job, whatever. You want to go have an experience, do that. Just remember you need to come home. That, I think, is the right message really with respect to those young people. We've all been there, right? It's absolutely in human nature. Some of us are going to want to go have some experience and travel and see some things.
Yeah, I did that. I left New Jersey,
and here you are.
But I've been here. But I've been here 30 years, so I made it to Nebraska.
Yeah,
I stayed here.
I think we can absolutely with confidence say to our young people or young people from other states as well, we have opportunities here, not just a job, not just a career,
right?
Really to build a life. Yeah. And we should not be we can't be shy about bragging about that. Can't be.
No. We should be going out and tell people.
That's right.
What was our tagline for the longest time? It probably still is the good life, right? Nebraska.
Right.
Not the other one that was out there. Nebraska is not for everyone.
It is the good life. And that's, as I said a minute ago, I don't think that's ever been more important to people than it is today.
Yeah.
The last 4 years have taught us some things about what's really valuable.
Well, I had a laugh when, not that COVID was funny or the pandemic was funny at all, but, I talked to friends of mine out on the East Coast, and they're like, how's it going out there? I said, we've been social distancing in Nebraska since 1857.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you want to get out of all the population and get away from all that. You can come out to Nebraska and it's fresh air, and you can, you can walk on either side of the street and not have to worry about running into anybody. So if there's a business out there that wants to move to Nebraska, or hopefully some CEO somewhere in Malibu says, what, I want to
time for something different.
Time for something different. How do they contact your office?
We have businesses contact us, of course, all the time. Either just calling, or opportunity.nebraska.gov is the website, and we're pretty straightforward in terms of the statutory incentives that the state offers businesses, et cetera. There's information there as well from the people side of things, and the Good Life is Calling campaign, why you might want to move to Nebraska. So it's all there. Nebraska is pretty straightforward with all of those things, so that everybody knows. Here's what you get. If this is what you do, this comes with it, et cetera.
And then, are there any particular initiatives that you're currently working on you can talk about, or anything?
Well, I think clearly the governor's focus on the bioeconomy, and I alluded to it earlier, is going to be a driving force in our work, not just because it's the governor's initiative, but also because it's what the market is.
And he's a businessman. I mean,
exactly.
Obviously, he understands business.
It's all built on that experience. That's right. This is clearly our opportunity right now. And so we're certainly focused on what we can do in this new economy that we are uniquely situated to execute on. And you cannot believe the opportunities. It's mind-boggling, the opportunities that we have to turn corn into almost anything you can imagine that is today made out of petrochemicals.
Wow.
So it's not even just food and fuel anymore. It's food and fuel and plastics,
packaging, and everything.
On and on and on. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so it would be absolutely foolish of us to ignore that opportunity as our focus right now. Does that mean that we don't pursue other? Of course not. Doesn't mean that. But
you play off your strengths and build your weaknesses.
We're going to focus on our assets.
Right.
Right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to pass on to our viewers and listeners that there's probably another half an hour we could talk about.
We could certainly
like
talk
I mentioned,
about some more
we can always have you
things.
back on again, too. So.
No, I think it is maybe just two general messages I would leave you with. Number one, we are in this really new era of economic development. Things have fundamentally shifted in this whole practice today because of the people equation and other factors. So that's one. If we're doing business the way we did it 10 or 20 years ago, we're doing it wrong. I believe it's that black and white. And then number two, certainly related to that, is that we're going to be strategic and targeted in the efforts that we make because, again, the game has changed and the market is providing us some really unique opportunities that we need to pursue. And so I think those are sort of two guiding principles right now that are making a lot of sense to us and our team with respect to this work.
It probably wouldn't hurt from an inside perspective, people that are residents of the state, call your friends outside of state,
yes.
Convince them to move to Nebraska if you have business opportunities or you're doing business in other areas of the country and you think Nebraska might be a better fit for them.
No question.
Have them contact your office.
And the people as well as the businesses, as we've talked about. And we actually have instances where that has happened. And I think in many cases, not in every case, in many cases, it's not even that you have to convince them. You just have to make them aware that the opportunity exists.
Right.
And we have people moving to Nebraska literally every day, finding that, this opportunity that I was looking for was here.
Is here.
We just got to tell more people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's your job, or part of
And
your job
yours.
anyway, and mine too. And that's
It's going to take all of us.
Yeah, it does. It takes all of us to promote the state, and so we look forward to hopefully maybe having you on again here, and
certainly.
Another time to
Happy
kind of
to
follow up and see if there's anything. As we mentioned, you've been in a position for about a year now, and I'm sure it's been a fast
whirlwind.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. But it sounds like, obviously you seem focused on the direction that you want to go with the state and with the governor, and if you have that certainly helps.
Good place
make
to start.
The job.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Casey, it's great. Thank you
You
so
as well.
much.
Thanks for the time.
Thanks for being on this
bet.
podcast, and we look forward to getting some more information as things change in your.
Happy to do it.
So cool. Thanks again for joining us today. For more information on the Department of Economic Development, check out the show's notes. See you on the next episode, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you'll never miss a podcast.